Go Island is brought to you by German Auto Import Network.
We have a very interesting show for you today on Go Island. We are talking about the art and the magic and the history of kites. And we're doing that in English and Mandarin. And we'll be translating what Mr. Young, he's back there, has to say about kites. He is an expert kite maker. These are some of the samples of the award-winning kites that he has made. One of them, this one, is currently in the Seattle Museum. And this is a brochure of a company that he ran, a factory that he ran in China. So if anyone knows about kites, it's Mr. Young. We're going to introduce him to you today on Go Island. On today's show, the growing sport of longboarding, a lingering big summer adventure to Lund, and classic clocked. That and more in the next 30 minutes. Why are we telling you all about kites today on Go Island? Well, there's a new event coming to Parksville on September the 7th. It's called Kite Over Moon. We're going to tell you about that today on Go Island, in addition to looking into some of the history and artistry that is kites. We're going to start off, though, with longboarding. It is growing in popularity. Our volunteer reporter, Lorraine Jensen, looks into the new sport, the growing sport of longboarding here in Nanaimo. You're watching Go Island on Shaw TV Channel 4, and today we are having a conversation about kites and lead up to Kite Over Moon Festival that is coming to the Parksville Community Park on September the 7th. Now, this is the second time in my 20-year career that we are going to have our conversation through an interpreter. Tissa Huang has volunteered her time today to translate what kite star, kite expert Mr. Young knows about kites. So we're going to get started, and my first question is, what do you remember about the day when you were 7 years old in China and flew your first kite?
I was very happy to fly the kite because it's so fun, and you go outside and you are so happy, and you raise your head to the sky, and the sky is so beautiful and colorful, and it's a very good exercise.
We would love to show you kites flying in a bright blue sky, but we're indoors for two reasons today. One is it's very rainy and wet outside, and it's not very windy, and we can actually get a closer look at some of the kites when they're not hundreds or thousands of feet up in the air. Your father, Mr. Young, said to you after many, many strings on your kites broke that day to figure out how to make a better string or make them better. And you did. Tell me how far you went in your designing of kites.
My father think, I like the kite so much, so he hired a very famous kite maker for me and teach me how to make the kite. And it was so meaningful that you made your own kite and you fly the kite.
And those kites have been winning awards and competitions ever since. Mr. Young is retired now, but he flies kites all the time, and his passion lies in the kites that he has designed, and they are recognized all over the world. We're going to talk a bit more about that later on this edition of Go Island, as well as look at some of the history and what it means to the Chinese culture. But right now it's time for a short break. Still to come today on Go Island, it's the end of the road or just the beginning, a visit to Lund, and will Todd and Derek beat the clock? That and more still to come today on Go. You're watching Go Island on Shaw TV Channel 4. Today we are talking kites. Why? Because there is a brand new event coming to Parksville. It's called the Kite Over Moon Festival, and Lloyd McElwam is one of the organizers there. We've seen Lloyd on our channel here before. Kite Over Moon, what is that, first of all?
Well, basically it's a combination of kite flying and celebration of the Moon Festival. The Moon Festival is the second biggest festival for in the Chinese calendar next to the New Year's. And it occurs the 15th of August, except that's August of the lunar calendar. And it, just like the New Year's, it varies. This year it's on the 19th of September, but just because of timing and schedules and stuff like that, we decided to hold the Kite Festival in combination with the Moon Festival, 7th of September.
Okay, and that's taking place at the community park in Parksville. We're inside today because it's raining outside, and you're going to host an event outside. I got to bring that up. You're hopeful it's going to be okay.
Well, you know, what can you do? Like, you have to plan these things so far in advance, and if it rains, it rains. And the goddess of the moon, Cheng Yi, right, hopefully she'll take mercy on us and stop it from raining for a while. And give us a little wind, too. I think a wind is more important.
Now, what types of things will be taking place at this event?
Well, we're going to be starting at 11 o'clock, and at 12 o'clock we're going to have opening ceremonies. And so we're going to have some people talk about kites, the history of kites, the Moon Festival. And we're going to have a lion dance. Jackie Lee, who does all the lion dances around, he's going to be doing lion dance. And then we're going to have some performers doing traditional Chinese folk dancing, also singing, traditional Chinese singing. And then we're going to have a band made up of Chinese, students playing, and also a tea ceremony. And they were going to try and hook up with somebody from Weifang do live streaming so that they can talk about it. That'd be a little bit later. If we can do it, it'll be a little bit later, 4 o'clock. He's actually going to be at a kite festival in Australia at the time.
Okay.
And so we're going to try and hook up with him, and he can say a few words live.
Sounds like quite an event. And why is it important, do you think, to bring these cultural events? And there does seem to be, as you've mentioned in telephone conversations, sort of a growing demand, and people really want these type of opportunities to share cultures.
Yeah. Well, I think one thing is that it's just very interesting. I think everybody, has some exposure to the Chinese culture, and it has a mystique to it. It's mysterious, and to be able to learn more about it, and of course, Canada being a mosaic of different cultures, and there's, Chinese is one of them, and also Vancouver Island, seems the Chinese population seems to be growing. So I think people just have are naturally inquisitive, right? They're just inquiring, want to find out more about it. And it's interesting. It's very spiritual. The Moon Festival is very, very spiritual, and I believe the kites are very spiritual too. And it's so it gives us an opportunity to kind of peer into the soul of the Chinese that have been here for 5,000 years.
I think I'm getting little shivers, and this is absolutely fantastic. Kite Over Moon, September the 7th at the Parksville Community Park. We'll talk a little bit more about kites and the Chinese culture later on this edition of Go Island. But first, it's time for another installment of our Butis RV's Big Summer. We're taking a trip to Lund, British Columbia. There is never a dull moment here on Go Island. Today we are looking at kites and the Chinese culture and an event that is coming up at Parksville Community Park on September the 7th. And we're doing it through Tissa, who is volunteering her time today to translate kite experts Mr. Young's answers that are coming to us, as you will see and have seen, in Mandarin. Okay, so I think now that you're up to speed, I get the sense that kites in Chinese culture, very important, more than here. Why do you think kites are so beloved in China?
Because the kite has 2,000 years history, and the kids love flying the kites. And it's a very popular outdoor exercise, and it's very easy to learn how to fly the kite.
And there's a real beauty in the kites that are flying. How does it make you feel when you're watching this piece of art in the sky?
Most of the time people fly the kite in the springtime when the flowers and the air is so fresh, and when you watch all the skies are flying the kite, you feel really so happy and so relaxed, and that's so nice.
And I think what can be seen as a somewhat restrictive society can find some relief and some freedom in the art form that is flying kites in Chinese culture. We not only have the language barrier to overcome here today, but I'm very aware of a cultural barrier as well, and just trying to get not just the phrases and the words, but the meanings behind those words translated. Tissa's done a fabulous job for us today, and our apologies if you notice, if you speak Mandarin and the translations aren't exactly the same, We're trying to pique your interest today to attend the Kite Festival at Parskville Community Park on September the 7th. And I'm not calling it a kite festival. I'm going to call it Kite Over Moon, September 7th at Parskville Community Park. We're going to take another look at the second edition of Clocked. Clocked is a new feature here on Shaw TV that's been running for about 6 months now. And we're going to go back and have another look at episode number 2. The boys have been bragging that they are winning all the time, so I need your help to help stump Todd and Derek. You can send me an email. Don't post it on Facebook because they go onto Facebook as well. kate.bergen@sjrb.ca, and they are shooting their next episode of Clocked later this week. That brings us to the end of this edition of Go Island. We thank everybody so much for working on the translations from Mandarin to English for the interviews today. And just another final note about kites. It's reported that paper kites were flying in China by at least 589 AD, and it's recorded by ancient sources that military operations put kites to use for things like, and I'm going to read the list here, measuring distances, testing wind, lifting men, signaling, and communication, other communication for military operations, including just distraction. Flying something beautiful over enemy lines would get them thinking about home and maybe feeling a bit more peaceful and less ready to fight. And I like the sounds of that. Kite After Moon, September 7th, Parksville Community Park. Thanks for watching this edition of Go Island. We'll see you next time.
Go Island is brought to you by German Auto Import Network. Clothing supplied by Catwalk Fashions. Kate's hair and aesthetics provided by Maffeo Salon.